Hello everyone, I welcome you all in the 8th part of our 1000 most expected question series for CUET-PG English Literature exam. So those of you are preparing for CUET-PG 2026 English Literature exam, do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel to get to know all the important questions that have been already asked in different exams like CUET-PG and UGC NET JRF. And as you all know, we have already discussed about Old English period, Middle English period, Renaissance period, Restoration period, and who are the important authors and novelists of 18th century. And in today's session, we will discuss the Romantic period and who are the early Romantic poets and who are the late Romantic poets who have written different poetries in that time period. All of them we will discuss in our today's session. So watch this video till the end to get to know all the important questions from Romantic periods. And without further delay, let's begin the session. The first question of today's session is who was known as Ploughman Poet. The author who was known as Ploughman Poet was born in Scotland, and in his poetry he deals with the rural life or provincial life. That's why he is known as the Ploughman Poet, and he is famous for his line, "My love is like a red rose." And the author who was known as the Ploughman Poet was Robert Burns. Robert Burns was known as the Ploughman Poet, who was one of the most important authors of 18th century who wrote poetry in which he deals with the rural life or provincial life. The second question is who wrote the work A Vindication of the Rights of Men. The Vindication of the Rights of Men is a work of 18th century, and the first time the author invokes the rights of man, and in the replay of this work, the feminist of 18th century Mary Wollstonecraft, who wrote a work which is known as A Vindication of the Rights of Women in the year 1792, and the author who wrote the work A Vindication of the Rights of Man was Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine in the year 1791 wrote this work A Vindication of the Rights of Man, and in this work he for the first time asserted the rights of man. The third question is bliss was it in that dawn to be alive. Bliss was it in that dawn to be alive. Who said this quote? This quote is said by one of the early romantic authors of 19th century, and through this quote he wanted to depict the horror of French Revolution which started in the year 1789, and the author was William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth said this quote about the French Revolution which he experienced in the year 1789. The fourth question is who was known as the Lost Leader. One of the author or one of the later Victorian poet Robert Browning, who called one of the Romantic period's author as the Lost Leader, and the Lost Leader was William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth was known as the Lost Leader, and it was said by Robert Browning in the later time period. The fifth question is the Napoleonic War ended in which year? We all know Napoleon came into power after the end of the French Revolution, which ended in the year 1798. Later, he also engaged with another war from the years 1803 to 1815. And at that period, Napoleon was killed in the Battle of Waterloo 1815, and the Napoleonic War ended in the year 1815. The sixth question is who started the newspaper The Examiner? The Examiner is a newspaper of 19th century, and this newspaper is started by two brothers, and these brothers are Leigh Hunt and John Hunt. Leigh Hunt and John Hunt started the newspaper The Examiner in the year 1806, and the paper continued till the year 1886. The seventh question is which magazine unjustly attacked John Keats, William Hazlitt, and Leigh Hunt as the Cockney School? Which magazine critiqued or attacked John Keats, Leigh Hunt as the Cockney School of Poet? It was the Blackwood magazine who attacked John Keats' Leigh Hunt as the Cockney School of Poet, and because of that John Keats committed suicide. And the magazine started from the year 1817 and continued till the year 1980. The eighth question is, who wrote the work The Decline and Fall of the Romantic Ideal? The work The Decline and the Fall of the Romantic Ideal was a work which is written on the Romantic period, and this work is written by one of the later critic of Romantic period, F.L. Lucas. F.L. Lucas wrote this work in the year 1936. The ninth question is, what was the only play by William Wordsworth? We all know William Wordsworth, the most important poet of the Romantic period, and he has written one of the plays at that time period, and the play was The Borderers. The Borderer was the only play by William Wordsworth, and this play was written in the year 1797. The 10th question is, what was the complete title of William Wordsworth, The Lyrical Ballads? We all know William Wordsworth Lyrical Ballad first appears with an invocation or with an introduction in the year 1798. Later it came into a preface in the year 1800, and the complete title of this work was Lyrical Ballad with a few other poems. Lyrical Ballad with a few other poems was the complete title of William Wordsworth's most important work, Lyrical Ballads, and this work first appeared in the year 1798. The 11th question is, what was the concluding poem of William Wordsworth's Lyrical Ballad? In William Wordsworth's Lyrical Ballad, there is total 23 poems, and the Lyrical Ballad started with the poem The Ancient Mariner, which is written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and the work Lyrical Ballad ended with the poem Tintern Abbey. With the poem Tintern Abbey, William Wordsworth's Lyrical Ballad ended. The 12th question is, which work is known as the spiritual autobiography of William Wordsworth? We all know William Wordsworth has written one of the most important work at that time period, and the work which is known as spiritual autobiography of William Wordsworth was The Prelude. The Prelude, which is a work which is written in the year 1805, and this work is known as the spiritual autobiography of the author William Wordsworth. The 13th question is, who was known as the poet of supernaturalism and the high priest of romanticism? And this author is one of the most important early romantics along with William Wordsworth and Robert Southey, and the author is known as the high priest of romanticism, and the author was Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It was Samuel Taylor Coleridge who was known as the poet of supernaturalism and the high priest of romanticism. The 14th question is, who said that Wordsworth's poetry is the reality and his philosophy is the illusion? Wordsworth's poetry is reality and his philosophy is illusion is said by the late Victorian critic, and this critic was Matthew Arnold. Matthew Arnold said about Wordsworth that his poetry is reality but his philosophy is illusion. The 15th question is, what was the subtitle of S.T. Coleridge's Kubla Khan? We all know S.T. Coleridge in his vision or in his dream poetry wrote an work, and this work is known as Kubla Khan, and the subtitle of Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Kubla Khan was A Vision in a Dream. A Vision in a Dream is the subtitle of Samuel Taylor Coleridge's work Kubla Khan, and this work is published in the year 1797. The 16th question is, who wrote the Asra poems? The Asra poems are written by one of the early romantic authors, and these Asra poems are dedicated to Sarah Hutchinson, and these Asra poems are written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote Asra poems, and it was William Wordsworth who wrote Lucy poems. The 17th question is, the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner are divided in how many parts? We all know the Rime of the Ancient Mariner is the first poem of lyrical ballads, and this poem is divided into 7 parts. Samuel Taylor Coleridge's poem The Rime of Ancient Mariner is divided into 7 parts, and in this poem S.T. Coleridge mourns the death of the sea creature or sea bird albatross. The 18th question is, who wrote the poem Thalaba the Destroyer? Thalaba the Destroyer is a poem which is written by one of the early romantics along with his another poem The Curse of Kahema, and this work The Thalaba of the Destroyer is written by Robert Southey. Robert Southey wrote this poem in the year 1801. The 19th question is, The Sorrows of Young Arthur was written by. The Sorrows of Young Arthur was the early romantics of German literature or German romantic work, and this work is written by one of the German romantics at that time, and the romantic was John Wolfgang von Goethe. John Wolfgang von Goethe wrote the work The Sorrows of Young Arthur in the year 1774, and it is one of the milestones of German literature. The 20th question is, who said this quote, I awake one morning and found myself famous? It is the famous quote, I awake one morning and found myself famous. It's said by the late romantic poet, and he has written the work Childe Harold Pilgrimage, and after writing this work, when he awake one morning he found himself famous, and the author was Lord Byron. Lord Byron, after writing his work Childe Harold Pilgrimage, he became famous in English literature, and that's why he called himself I awake one morning and found myself famous. The 21st question is, what are the 4 Oriental Tales by Lord Byron? Lord Byron, along with Childe Harold Pilgrimage, also wrote 4 Oriental Tales, and these tales are The Giaour, The Bride of Abydos, The Corsair, and Lara. These are the 4 Oriental Tales which is written by Lord Byron along with his work Childe Harold Pilgrimage. The 22nd question is, who was known as the Eton atheist? The writer who was banished from Oxford for his work The Necessity of Atheism was also known as Eton atheist, and the author who was known as Eton atheist was P.B. Shelley. P.B. Shelley was known as the Eton atheist. The 23rd question is, what is the subtitle of the work Alastor? Alastor is also an important work by the author P.B. Shelley, and the subtitle of this work Alastor was The Spirit of Solitude. The Spirit of Solitude is the subtitle of the work Alastor, which is written by P.B. Shelley, and the work is published in the year 1816. The 24th question is, the poem Endymion was dedicated to. The poem Endymion is one of the most important romantic elegy, and this elegy is written by John Keats for his beloved friend, and the work is dedicated to Thomas Chatterton. The poem Endymion is dedicated to Thomas Chatterton, who committed suicide by consuming arsenic, and this work is published in the year 1818. The 25th or the last question is, here lies one whose name was writ in water. Here lies one whose name is writ in water is an epitaph which is written by one of the most important late romantic poets, and the late romantic poet was John Keats. The epitaph Here lies one whose name is writ in water is said by John Keats in his deathbed, and this epitaph is written on his tomb. And these are the 25 important questions from romantic literature or romantic period. So those of you are preparing for CUET-PG 2026 English literature exam, do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel to get to know all the important questions for your exam. Thank you everyone for watching this video.